Our guest today grew tired of doing recoveries with old school chains. He researched and found that kinetic ropes are the way to go, but could not find any good quality but reasonably priced and Canadian-made kinetic ropes in Canada. So he decided to start making his own. Ian from Afraid Not Ropes, welcome to the 4x4 Canada podcast.
Thanks, Wes, for having me. I appreciate it. Appreciate being here.
So as we stated in the intro, you make synthetic recovery gear like kinetic ropes, winch lines, soft shackles, etc.
Yep.
We'll get into that into a second, but I just want to give your website and socials a quick shout out. First of all, it's not with a K, like a knot in a rope, which totally makes sense, right? So the website is afraidnotropes.ca, and you're also on Facebook and Instagram as Afraid Not Ropes.
That's right.
And of course, I'll put those links down in the show notes and the posts on Facebook, etc. So I want to talk about your gear, but first I want to know, how did you get into four-wheeling and what led you to starting Afraid Not Ropes?
Well, what led me into four-wheeling kind of is that I grew up on a farm, so
it was natural then.
Yeah. You got to learn to deal with the mud, or you know what, you just join the mud. You become the mud. And that was pretty much what it was for me since I was, a little kid out in the dirt and dust with the Tonka toys. You know what I mean? Watching my dad do the chores. Like it started back then, I'd say. I'd come back and I'd have to he'd hose me off with an outdoor hose because it's just coated. So, But so initially that's how it kind of started. Then we got into snowmobiles, and then just living out where I am. A lot of my buddies ended up getting trucks. Not really many Jeeps, but it was always trucks. Put big tires on it. Don't do a proper lift. Have no recovery gear other than a chain. Just see what you can do, and then call your buddy and ask him, "Hey, it's 1 a.m. Can you come bring your truck?" And then like 3 other buddies' trucks because we might need it because I'm out in the bush.
Yeah.
So that was kind of started with that. Then I got into ATVing. ATVing is now a big thing for me. All my buddies have four-wheelers. I've got a Can-Am 1000 that I've put bigger tires on, clutch kit, I like to put it all the way up the handlebars in the water and just have a great time with it. So doing that kind of stuff, my buddy had a Jeep in university, and I had an old 94 1500 Chevy 6.5. And we were up in university and we found these gravel pits, and we would just like out in the snow up in North Bay, actually. So there was snow year round essentially. And actually the whole time I was in school, it's essentially, snow, but
September to June is snow.
Pretty much. That's right. So I'm up there and we're just, wheeling and having a great time. And that kind of really dug the hooks even deeper if they weren't deep enough. So I've always had to have a truck of some sort that I don't trail ride it per se. My new truck, I got 2014 Ram now. My wife kind of put the kibosh to me trail riding it after a little bit of, some trail damage, let's just say. So and it makes sense. It's my daily driver. I don't have a rig, a trail-specific rig right now. But that's what I'm working towards. That was one of the goals with the Afraid Not Ropes, is to have a bit of side money to build something, build a trail unit that I can get out, bring the family, bring the dog, and just whether it's overlanding or just getting out on some of the back roads that we have around here.
Having a daily driver as your wheeler makes it a little tough. That's a boat I'm in right now, and there's definitely stuff that I don't attempt that I may attempt if it was a trail only rig, right?
Yeah,
but
no, definitely.
You got to do what you got to do,
and when you come home,
it is what it is.
You got somebody to answer to. You got to be a little bit more careful. But with starting Afraid Not Ropes, it really started. I don't know if you've heard of a really off-road recovery or not.
Not offhand, no.
Yeah, so look them up. Anybody who's listening, look them up. They've got 18,000 members, volunteer organization, nonprofit, and all they do is off-road recovery. Say I'm out, I'm getting stuck. Remember when I said I used to call my buddies? Now I just post on Facebook in this group, "Hey guys, stuck here. Here's a couple pictures of where I am and how I'm stuck." And there's 18,000 people across Ontario willing to come out and give me a pull. So the guy who runs it.
And what What is that called again? Just we'll throw that in the show notes as
A
well
really
too for
off-road
people.
recovery. It sounds like they're a business, but they're not. It's literally, you post on Facebook, the guy that's 10 minutes down the road sees it, comes and pulls you out.
Right.
Or the guy that's 2.5 hours away but is looking for an excuse to get his rig dirty, makes the trek, right?
Yep.
And
Yeah, we have the same idea in BC, the BC 4x4 recovery, or I think is what it's called. The same idea,
yeah,
you get posted up, and yeah, we've been out, leaving the house at 10 o'clock to go get somebody that's an hour away. Same idea, right? So
yeah,
no, and that's great, and it's all volunteers, right? I mean,
oh yeah,
you
yeah,
offer them money or a case of beer or
yeah.
whatever, but most people don't expect it. So,
No, we don't allow it actually. If
oh
we
yeah,
hear that
yep,
somebody has requested money, like, be respectful and understand people's rigs cost money, fuel costs money, and most
hmm
people are willing to throw a little here and there.
yep,
But if you expect it or ask for it, you get a warning, and then that's it. Like, we're so strict
yep,
with certain things. We don't allow trespassing, all that stuff. But so to get back to how it started is, we were looking for sponsors. The guy who runs it and myself were kind of hand in hand, getting it going all the way from, like, I think I was part of it from like 500 members, not even. So we started working on it, and we wanted sponsors so that people could have, the 10% discount, whatever, get more people in.
right,
And I couldn't find anything that was like, you look at the big guys in the States, and I'm like, I'm not spending $550 for a 20-foot rope shipped to my house, like, with duties. I'm just not doing it. Like, I can't
yeah,
afford it.
yeah,
I was at the Barrie Flea Market, if you've ever heard of that. We were at the
you bet,
Barrie Flea Market, and a buddy of mine was there, and he sells seconds of ropes. So they're hollow, double braided, but they're hollow, so there's no core. And he just turns them into, ropes, 20 foot, 30 foot, whatever he
yep,
can make out of each piece. And so I was just there. Oh, this was years ago. This was like 5, 6, 7 years ago. And I was there, and I picked one up because I was like, I'm sick of this chain. It's rusty. I've got it in a milk crate in the back of my truck. You know what I mean? Like, just rattling around, pinching my fingers. Like, you see some guy stuck out in the snow, and you have your good clothes on, and you're like, oh man, my wife is not going to be happy about this.
yeah,
Anyway, so I grabbed that, I threw that in the truck, and I started using that on recoveries. And I was like, man, rope's the way to go. Like, it just, I'm pretty sure there was a nylon. I think that it was a nylon. And so it had the stretch to it as well. And I was like, this is like
yep,
premium. So fast forward, 5 years from then, and I'm with a really off-road recovery. And I messaged my buddy. I'm like, hey man, where are you getting these from? Like, what's the deal with these? And he's like, oh, we got a bunch still. Let me turn them into ropes for you. Charge you dirt cheap. And then I would charge dirt cheap on top. So it was like $20 for one of these ropes. There's no guarantees. There's no whatever. It was just like, if you want a little rope that will work for most trucks.
mm-hmm.
And then it just kind of snowballed, hailed, if you will. Like, within a year, I am where I am. I've got winch lines, soft shackles. We're getting into billet stuff. I found a manufacturer in Canada finally, so that's going to be a surprise. We're working on that still, but a lot of stuff that we're working on, like, it's just built and built, right? Started with
Yep,
1/2 inch and 1 inch ropes. Had maybe 5 of them. Did a pre-order on a bunch of Facebook groups. Saw that there
yep,
was a demand for it, and I think that first order was maybe 20 ropes, and then from then now I've got 5 different sizes in 3 different lengths, right? Well,
yep.
actually, I've got all kinds of sizes that are available. I just don't stock everything. The bigger ones I don't stock, but
Like this, I was looking on your website, like the 2 and 5/8, and I think I
yeah,
saw it on somebody's YouTube video about the Northern Expo
yeah,
in Ontario there. And there's a video of this huge rope, like,
yeah,
2.5 or almost 3 inches. And I'm like,
yeah,
what the heck is he using that on?
yeah. So that's not even our biggest, actually. So that the one that you saw in the video is the 2.5 inch.
Okay.
So 2 7/8, and that's not even the big. We can get up to 3 inch if you really need it. There hasn't been a desire yet, and it would be quite pricey. But
Yeah.
the 2.5s and the I've sent a 50-foot 2 and 5/8 rope out to Manitoba to a farmer. He's like, I want like the biggest that you can get me. And I'm like, the most reasonable thing that I can get you is a 2 5/8. That's the biggest. That's the biggest one I've ever sold. But the 2
Yeah.
1/2s I've sold a good amount to farmers. I've got some mines who've bought them. I've got some military contracts who've purchased a couple of them. When it comes
When
to,
you think about it, you get some of those big tractors that are, duals all the way around, and they get stuck in some of that stuff. I mean, they're stuck,
oh yeah,
right?
the
So that's kind
articulating
of where I
ones.
figured. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
And that's kind of where I figured you're going with that, when I saw them in the video, but
yeah. That's
it
the
still looks cool.
Oh yeah, that's my biggest thing. It's mostly farmers, but there is other
Yeah,
stuff out there. So we can
yeah,
get up to six
yeah,
hundred
for sure.
thousand pound brake strength winch line, or soft
Wow.
shackles. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah,
it gets crazy at that point. But you want something, I can get it for you, pretty much.
yeah, yeah. So everything right from the quad stuff right up to,
Yeah.
farmer size stuff.
Yep.
Yeah, no doubt. So what are some of your most popular sizes that you are selling? I mean, because obviously you have a mixture between your quad stuff and your 4x4 guys. But is there a couple sizes that are really fairly popular with you?
Yeah, I'd say well, because 7/8 is one of my newer sizes. Um, I would say my 1 inch was because it kind of was covering for
Hmm.
the 7/8, but now 7/8 is definitely probably the best seller. It just
Yeah,
covers so much, like the Jeeps, the trucks, the light vans. You know, those are the main people that are looking for that kind of product too, right? So we have
yeah,
some ATVs and some side by sides, and a couple Subarus and light Tacomas, things like that. Like those are getting down to my 3/4, 5/8, and half inch. The 1 inches still sell, you get up into the dualies and things like that. But the reason that we actually swapped is because over the year we've been developing kind of our weave, and just a change in the weave has gotten us 7,000 pounds of brake strength in our 1 inch ropes, like just a weave change.
wow,
So
wow,
when you're talking ropes, like that makes all the difference in the world. If you can find a weave that works for you, and like you can get it to have a higher brake strength and still be super durable.
and a smaller size, taking up less room and less weight.
Yep, lighter, less room.
Yeah,
So our 7/8 is now 27,500 pounds brake strength, and our 1 inch was 28 at the beginning
yeah,
of the year. So we're constantly coming out, like trying to figure it out. Like we're changing the weave here and there, doing a break, doing testing, just trying to
yeah.
get it to where it can be the best that it can be. Some people or companies, I think, get hung up on the definition of double braid. And the definition of double braid is a certain percentage core, certain percentage outer sheath.
Hmm.
And to me, I don't care what it's called. I want the best. I want the strongest. I want the most durable. If I can't write double braided nylon rope in my ad because it's technically not, I'll make up another word for it. I want the best, and,
Exactly.
and that's what everybody should get, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah. As long as it works, like you say, as long as it works and you're getting those results that you need
yeah,
out of it.
yeah,
Yeah.
100%.
Do you have tags on them with the ratings on
Yeah,
them, or?
yeah. So
Yeah,
I actually get their leather. I get them made by
yeah,
a buddy of mine who's just down the road. Everything you'll notice, pretty much that I do is just down the road. Like I keep everything so close if I can. I've got a buddy who's got a laser. He does all my other patches. The factory's 20 minutes from my house, like the manufacturer. I can go down there,
yeah.
talk to Hank anytime I want, and be like, this is what we got to change. Let's do this. Let's try this. Just see
Right.
how it works, right?
Yeah,
So he's getting the nylon from Canada. It's Canadian nylon. It's
yeah,
Canadian winch fibers as well, UHMPE, and it's just like if I can keep it close, I'd rather do that. So,
Well, more respect for you on that, because that's not an easy thing to do. You know,
no,
my job
it's
is
not.
my full-time job is purchasing, and
Yeah,
it's a tough thing, right? So the more
yeah.
power to you, keep it all Canadian based is, you know,
I could show
that's
you a
great.
picture. I could show you a picture of my Instagram requests, and there's like 6 Chinese rope manufacturers like on there at all times, being like, "Hey, we can
Yep.
do this for a quarter of the price." And it's like, you know what? I click on it, and I'm like, "Okay, well, let's just see, you know,
Yep.
what are they all about?" And I've I've seen some that look so similar to other manufacturers who are charging the same thing that I am, and I'm
Hmm.
like, I don't know, somebody's copying somebody, or they're genuinely
Yep.
getting it from this guy, and I get to see the prices, and I'm like,
Yep.
man, I could make a lot of money, but it's not worth it to me. I'd rather make less money, stick to my guns, support a family that I can go see, have dinner with, you know,
Yep.
and that's like, because then they support the basketball team that their son plays on, right? Like that's
Exactly. And
how it
that's one of
is.
the reasons for bringing companies on to, before Canada podcast is we've had, a few, Tim from TMR Customs and yourself, and I've got some more lined up, but is to work and promote these Canadian based companies, because like they're wheeling with the guys every weekend, or they're out there supporting not only the
Yeah,
off-road or overlanding community, but, they're also sponsoring your kid's baseball team or hockey team,
yeah,
and
yeah,
stuff like that. And you're also keeping Canadian employees working. So,
yeah.
definitely hats off to you for that, because it's not an easy thing to do.
And you get a superior product too.
Yep.
As long as you're getting a manufacturer that cares and wants to produce something that's good, you
Yep.
know, you can't beat Canadian made. Like,
Exactly. Yeah.
right?
100%.
There's some
Definitely.
things out there that I've seen where it's just like, I don't know if this is actually Canadian made or they just put a stamp on it that doesn't look the best, and you're kind of like, man, that's
Yep.
disappointing. Like, if you're Canadian made, I'd be willing to pay more for it,
Yeah.
you know?
Especially recovery gear. I mean, we've
Yeah.
all seen the pictures of, recovery gear that has gone, or recoveries that have gone bad. And I
Oh,
mean,
yeah.
you're every time you're out there with doing a recovery, if you're not smart about it and don't have good quality equipment, you're taking your life and others' lives, people's lives in your hands, right? So,
100%. Yeah. We see
it's
that gets posted all the time on the Really Off Road Recovery Facebook page there. And it's just like, because that's what people are doing, right? Like 18,000 members that's what they're there for, to go
yeah,
help each other or get helped. And people are posting all the time, like this, that, like my buddy did this. And, don't pull off the ball of your truck when you got a 12-inch
yep,
drop hook. Like, it's just like, you know what I mean? Like, it's just, that's not what it's
yeah,
meant for. So,
exactly. Yeah, exactly. When it comes to recovery gear, it's worth pitting out the money. It
yeah.
sucks at the beginning. I mean, I've had the Princess Auto recovery gear when I was living paycheck to paycheck, and it kind of worked, but it was like,
Yeah.
it's worth putting out the money for recovery gear, right? So,
And if that's what
so
you can afford, you know what I mean? Like,
mhm.
by all means, like, get the best that you can afford at the time.
Yeah,
Um, or focus your energy on one piece that you think that would be the most important to your wheeling. Are you always by yourself? Winch.
yeah,
Are you always scraping your undersides? Okay, skid plate, lift,
yeah,
right? Like, go out, take your vehicle out, whatever it is, try it. You know what I mean? On the trails that you're going to do, and then build it from
yes,
there, right? So, like, I always recommend, probably one of the first things I recommend is a rope if you're riding with your buddies, or if you're just driving around and you've got a truck and you see somebody in the ditch, and you can just give them a little tug, right? It doesn't have
yeah,
to be one of my ropes. It could be, whatever. Just make sure it's rated for what you're using it for. I'd rather see somebody safe and know what it's good for, and some guy that grabbed a chain at the back and it's been there for 15 years and you don't know anymore, right?
Yeah, exactly. And a lot of chains are not rated, right? I mean,
No,
it's,
just an
you know,
old logging chain, you know?
exactly, right? So that's, probably one of the worst things. And then when something does happen, they become like a huge missile, right? So
Yeah,
it's,
that's
but
probably one of my biggest fights with people. It's not a fight, but people come up to me and say, "Why do I need this?" Versus I've got a chain in the back of my truck, and I'm like, "I'll all for it. Like if that's what
yeah,
works for you, just be very careful." Like I don't go to shows and tell people what to do. If you want
yeah.
to rock a chain, rock a chain. Just be very, very vigilant
Well,
because
the big
you
thing with
don't know.
chains is a lot of people are using them as a snatch strap, right? Kind of
Yeah,
idea, right? And
yeah.
they're not made for that.
No,
They're made for a lifting or for tying down and
static, right?
for static, exactly.
Yeah.
And they're not made for that jerking motion. And yeah, I don't know, they just scare me.
Steel fatigue is a real thing. You
Yeah,
don't see it, you know, and then you end up with 20 feet of chain coming around your tailgate if you're lucky,
yeah,
or through your windshield. The amount of
exactly.
farmers that have swapped over from chain and come to the rope, 50% of the people I spoke to were like, "This is why." If somebody was in that cab, they wouldn't be here anymore.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, and that's why I really do try to keep things the best price that I can, especially for farmers on the big ropes because they are really expensive. It's just the amount of nylon there is in a 2.5 inch, 30-foot rope. Like it's just a lot of material. Yeah, it just
No
is.
doubt.
And it costs quite a bit of money because there aren't many people who can put a splice in a rope that big and have it good enough. So you pay
Yeah.
for it,
Yeah.
right? And I've had all kinds of people message me and be like, I want to get rid of this chain. It's, let's go with a rope.
Chains kind of scare me a bit, right? So you do the kinetic ropes, and then you also do soft shackles and synthetic winch lines as well, right?
Yep, that's right.
Yeah.
So we do a multitude of sizes. I try to start with like the best fiber I can find. Right now we're getting it from Canada. It's great. It's one of the highest rated fibers that you can get. It's if not equal to some of the top American brands out there. We're pushing some of the highest numbers that you can get, and we're testing with loops, with hooks, with anything that you would on an actual winch line.
Yeah.
Some of these companies they test straight line pull with no splice. You get a higher number, but that's not real world.
Right.
Like our 1/4 inch winch lines for our ATVs and side by sides is 9,000 pounds brake strength.
Wow.
Talking 1/4 inch winch line at 9,000 pounds. I've only ever heard of one that's higher, and it's yet to be tested. I actually want to buy one and test it out and see where it comes up with. But there's plenty of Chinese companies out there, and I've watched a few YouTube videos on it. I've tested a few myself, and it's like their numbers are high. They're not quite, I don't think, as high as what I'm pumping, but their numbers are legit from what I found, if not
Okay.
actually above what they're rating. Their longevity isn't there. I don't know what they're doing. I don't know how they can get such high numbers out of a brake strength, but it just lasts like no time. Like we're talking, if you're using your winch line every weekend,
Hmm.
you're going through a couple a year. You're tying a knot in it just to get
Yeah.
through.
Yeah.
And I don't know. Like their numbers
Yeah.
are legit. You know what I mean? It just confuses me. Their numbers are legit, so they're not all of them. Some of them are, but not all
They're
of them are lying to
they're
you.
legit for the first pull.
That's what I mean. Yeah. So yeah. So they're legit out of the box.
Yeah.
I've never taken one after a year of use and like broken it versus mine, but maybe that's an idea I can go
Now
with.
here's
But
here's another question for you, a little bit off, but not really, since we're talking about longevity, is how should we clean our ropes and synthetic lines and that? When you're talking that you're right into the mud and stuff like that. I personally try and avoid mud, but there always
Yeah.
is mud no matter what. So, how do you clean the kinetic ropes and the synthetic winch lines properly so A, to get the mud out, and also so that whatever you're using to clean with does not prematurely wear or affect the nylon?
Right. So I personally don't do anything.
Okay.
That's because I want to push this stuff to the limit. Like, I keep it in a closed bag
Hmm.
when it's wet. Like, if you open that bag, like, there's something in there because it smells. But that's the difference between me and somebody who's trying to care for the rope. Like, I'm trying to push that rope to its absolute limit.
Right.
And
Right.
I'm out throwing it in mud, putting it in the snow, freezing it, letting it freeze, pulling it with it frozen. The same rope that I use to tow a truck, I'm putting it on a 50,000-pound RV that's stuck. Just like, let's see where this can go, right?
Hmm.
But if
Hmm.
you're looking to actually take care of your rope, best thing to do, take it out of the bag or take it out of whatever you have it in a bag, put it in a pail, large pail or basin or something, just water. Shake it
Okay.
up, rinse it out. We've got a coating on ours that helps with abrasion, UV, all that stuff. You just tuck it in, shake it out, and let it dry. That's pretty much it. With our winch lines, if you really want to, you can pull it off your bike and clean it up. If you wish, you can spray it down with your hose, pull it
Yeah.
out, spray it down with your hose, let it dry, and wrap it back up. I personally haven't had an issue with just leaving it the way it is. Just water. Just water is the best thing to do.
Perfect.
You
That
could
makes total
probably
sense.
do soap if you got some oil or something on it, but I wouldn't even worry about it. It's mildew resistant. Nylon spends most of its life in the water on ships and on everything else. There's no real issue with it.
That's a
Let it
good
dry,
point.
I guess, is
Yeah.
your biggest thing.
Yeah. Yeah. Let it air out and go from there.
Yeah.
But yeah, you're right. That actually makes sense when you think about it, that nylon ropes are, for that they live on the ships, right? So that does make
Yeah.
sense for sure. So
Yeah. And they're dealing with salt. They're dealing with, they're out in UV all the time.
yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, no, I've rinsed mine out, a few times, and more or less, because if it is just soaked in mud, I just
Yeah.
don't like it
Dusty
all.
and everything like that.
Yeah, exactly
Yeah.
right.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah,
Same thing with the
definitely,
chain. Like, you're just grabbing a dirty rope again every time you got
exactly.
your clean clothes on. Yeah.
Ex-
I get it. I do. I just don't have time for that.
yeah, yeah, exactly. So, do you have different colors on your ropes and your winch lines,
No,
or you stick with
we're
one?
doing. Yeah, we stick with one. We're doing orange. We've
Hmm.
really created the brand around this reddish orange
Yep.
color. High visibility. It looks really good in my opinion.
Yeah, it does. Yep.
Contrast the black wear pads that we have. Our
Well,
wear
let's talk about
pads.
those. About the wear pads.
Yeah, so our wear pads are actually a third layer of nylon.
Hmm.
So you're not talking that thin something. I don't know if you listen. Your farmers will understand the stuff that you cover your hydraulics in so that it doesn't wear down.
Yeah,
That kind of stuff. That thin,
plastic stuff. Yeah,
yeah, hollow. What's it called? Hollow weave.
yeah. That's
Something like
exactly
that.
what they
Anyways,
call it. Yeah.
that's not what we're talking here. We're talking something that's you know between 1/8 and quarter inch thick. It's so heavy duty that you'll never wear it out. Like, it just will last forever. We wanted to do that over the rubber that you see a lot of companies do.
Hmm.
A lot of companies do what they do is they make the rope and then they coat it. So each 20-foot or each 30-foot rope, they put an encapsulating, that's what they call it, a coating on it. And it's just so stiff. Like, that rope is so stiff. The loops with the splices, they're so stiff. And then they add another dip. Sometimes they even add like a heat shrink. and then
Right.
dip it again. So that's what that black dip is that's the secondary dip. And it's just like, it's so hard to deal with. Like wrapping it up and then unwrapping it and anything like that. My ropes are soft. They get dipped. They get run the whole 1,000 feet that we run gets dipped, and we make the ropes out of it, and we add the wear pads as it's being made. So
Right.
we kind of do it a little bit differently. I get why people do it. It's easier to splice an uncoated rope, but that's just not the way that we do it.
Yeah, it makes sense to do it of the actual material, right? So get some extra strength on there. So on the website, I saw what you're calling a low friction ring for the soft shackles.
Right. Have you ever heard of that?
I have not, and that actually I thought
Okay.
was a really interesting idea.
It's the next snatch block. If you
Hmm.
haven't looked up a low friction ring soft shackle, go on my website, check it out. Give me a call. I'll describe it to you, or I can describe it to you right now. Listen to the podcast.
There we go. Yeah,
Listen all
yeah.
the way through.
Let's describe it now. But it would definitely direct
Yeah,
people to your website for a visual thing. But
yeah.
I thought it's like you say, it's the next sash block.
If you've got a synthetic winch line, which so many people are pushing towards synthetic winch lines,
Hmm.
I've had many discussions with people, steel or synthetic, and I say unless you're dragging logs through a forest and you're constantly in an abrasive situation,
Yep.
synthetic every time. The only thing that steel winch cable beats anything in is the abrasion resistance.
Right.
That's it. Strength, my ropes are stronger than them. Synthetic winch line is usually stronger than the steel.
Hmm.
So maybe winching, if you're constantly freezing and thawing, or freezing and using it, I haven't had that issue. I think that's maybe just people using the cheap Chinese winch line that are having that problem, which is possible. But so anyways, a low friction ring and soft shackle combo is what we usually sell. It's just a soft shackle. You know what that is.
Yep.
Easy to use, super light, a lot safer than a D-ring. And then you take a billet piece of aluminum and turn it down into a ring that has a radius on the inside. So it actually kind of, the soft shackle hugs the radius. And then you wrap your winch line around the ring, which has a divot. I don't know how do you say that. Describing something that, it's just easier with a picture. Look up low friction ring as you listen to this, and you'll understand what I'm saying. And then you wrap the synthetic winch line around it, and it just, as long as you don't buy the winch line that has like a gummy, if your winch line has a really gummy texture to it, it won't work the best because it'll stick and it'll kind of burn to it.
No, I'm looking at it online right now as we're talking, and it's basically.
Can you describe it better than I can?
Basically, like a donut, where you've got your hole in the center, and then you've got your, and that's where you put your soft shackle through, and then you run your line through where it's machined out around the edge,
a gully, if you will.
Exactly, yeah.
So
basically, like it's like that wheel that's in the snatch block, but it doesn't have all the metal casing around it, and when the wheel or the soft shackle goes through the center, and then your winch line goes around, same idea as it does in the shackle, but like I say, just with all that extra, 5 pounds of material, right? So,
well, there's no maintenance.
Mm-hmm.
There's no rattle. There's no rust. There's no greasing it.
Yeah.
It's just a piece of billet that just acts the way it acts, and it happens to act the way that we want it to as a snatch block or a low friction ring, right? It's just
because that's the only other alternative to having one of the bigger snatch blocks when you're running, running a synthetic rope.
It's faster as well. Like if you're doing something that like a race or something, it's faster.
Yeah.
The sailing has been doing this for years and years and years. and it's just starting to get picked up now because people look at it and go, wait a minute, that's doing the exact same thing, just we're doing it on a larger scale.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like you don't have to unpin your shock or your snatch block, or slide it sideways, or however your style is, right? So it just makes it quick and simple and easy and small. You don't have to have a great big snatch block hanging around, right? So
Yeah,
yeah,
for
that
sure.
totally makes sense. So I've noticed on your website that you also make some Can-Am parts. What's up with those?
I make gaskets for Can-Am. So Can-Am Renegades and Outlanders, they've got an intake seal that's absolute garbage from the factory. It is this spongy whatever material that fades, that shrinks down and just never bounces back. So you get
Yep.
maybe a year out of it. And Can-Ams, they come with a factory snorkel, and people are putting it, using them in the water. And they're wondering, like, how is their water getting in? I've sealed everything up.
Yeah.
It's this gasket. So that's one thing we do. We also do the trunks at the back. We do a gasket at the back. And then for the smaller Outlanders, the 450s to the 570s, there's a storage at the top that I've done as well. I'm working at more.
Mm-hmm.
It's just Can-Am is what I have at my house, so I can test it.
Yep.
It started out with, there's only one company that I could find that does it in the States, and it would have cost me $90 to get it here. I'm like, no way.
Yeah.
So I called about 15 places in Canada, and we designed them, and now we're doing it. So I also do some billet stuff like shifter knobs. We're just going to get gas caps in. That's done by another company in Canada here.
Mm-hmm.
They're just in Quebec. And we also do the cover. There's a billet cover that you can get for that intake. So that's pretty much, it's out of necessity again.
Yeah.
I looked for it, couldn't find it in Canada, and was like, you know what, I can do this for cheaper and add free shipping, because I'll throw it in the mail.
Yeah.
And it gets to you.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, that's what
maybe a bit slower, but
that's has driven a lot of entrepreneurs in Canada, is seeing a need for a product, whether they're starting right from scratch, like the gasket, and that, or just not being able to find something in Canada of good quality and affordability. So that's why not necessarily in the 4x4 or overlanding world, but even in the aluminum window frames and stuff like that.
No, it's 100% true.
Yeah.
If you look at windows and you go, you know what, I couldn't do it. I don't know anything about them, but and you think that's $1,000 window, and you look at it, you take it apart, and you're like, there's nothing to this window.
Yeah.
If I can find somebody to make it for me for less and make a business out of it, that's the thing. Like,
yeah, exactly.
Making a business out of anything is the biggest part.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Now, for somebody that's just getting into four-wheeling and they're looking at recovery gear, let's take, say that, what would you recommend for your top 5 recommendations for recovery gear for a new person?
This is something that we cover, really off-road recovery, and I do presentations sometimes. Mm-hmm. We've done it Overland North and just done little how to recover, where's your toe point, this and that. Easy stuff for newbies. And so, like, the way I break it down is, are you talking, like, do you want just recovery gear from me, or stuff that you should carry in your vehicle? Because 5 recovery gear things, mm-hmm. if I may, I'm going to say, do it. For me, I'll do my list. For me, rope, winch, tire care, which is like an air compressor, sidewall repair, puncture kit, soft shackle, tree saver. So you can kind of put soft shackle with the rope, and you can kind of put tree saver with the winch if you wanted to, because it's really, you kind of need a kit.
Yep.
But if you're talking, like, if you're going off-roading, you should have a first aid kit, mm-hmm. food, water, the stuff that if something happens and you're out there, like a blanket, let's say, it's fall. If something happens, you're good.
Yeah.
Like you don't have to worry about it. You can get through the night. Fire starter, like all those are survival things.
Yeah.
I guess you can call that survival. But
I have a bag or a backpack in my vehicle, and I've had it in there for years. It's sort of I call it my bug out bag. It's
yeah,
got, spare wool, or it's got spare socks in it. It's
yeah,
got, how does, the
a
fire
jacket.
starter, and yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
All that kind of stuff.
yeah,
Right.
some granola bars,
Yep.
a couple of bottles of water.
Yep.
Just things to get you through the night, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Because there's a recovery that I remember I went to. It was an hour from me, but nobody was getting back to them. We were still pretty small at the time, and nobody was getting back to them. And I'm laying in bed, and I'm like, man, it's like -10.
Oh,
These people don't have blankets. They don't have anything. I look over at my wife. She's like, "Are you gonna go?" I'm like, "Yep, I got to. Like, I have to."
yeah.
These people are like, they're gonna have a really bad time. So, and I went, and they had a 3500 diesel, big tires, 6-speed Cummins, like something and it was stuck. And I just had my 1500 truck on summer tires in the wintertime. You know what I mean? Like, I didn't even know if I was going to get down the trail, let alone rescue them.
Right.
So I just brought blankets. I brought some food. I brought some water. I was like, you guys drop, I'll get to you. At least you'll get through the night.
Yeah.
And we'll see if we can get you out while I'm there. And this is when I just had started with the ropes. So I had one of my ropes, and I was still kind of testing and whatnot. And I got there, popped them out, no problem. And, it just always reminds me, like, just have a little kit. It doesn't take much. Some granola bars, some,
Yeah, like I say, throw something in a backpack, and it doesn't have to be big. Mine's a big backpack, but it doesn't have to be a big one. It could just be small, like you say, some water, some, I got some energy gels in there, and some Cliff bars, and
perfect.
stuff like that, right? So, and extra gloves, extra socks, because once you get wet, that's one of the worst things, especially in the winter. Once you get wet, then it starts getting worse and worse. And first aid kit is definitely high on the list. I did a recent interview with Wild Med Kits, and
heard that one too.
And he answered a lot of questions that I had in regards to first aid kits, and hopefully I never have to use one. But that's definitely another thing that should be in every vehicle. And I think one thing too is a lot of people don't pack is a shovel. It's amazing how far or how much you can get, with this just shovel, right? So
bag of salt in the wintertime.
Yeah, exactly.
Or cat litter or whatever. Just whatever you ride, whether it's, down in the sand and you bring a shovel and, something out, anything that you need, like, just try to bring it with you. Because there's going to be a day where you get to a point where you're like, crap, it's 10 o'clock at night. I mean, it may never happen in Ontario because of groups like Really Off-Road Recovery, but and you're going to stay the night.
Yep.
Like, you're out there.
Yep.
Just plan for it, right?
Yep.
That's all you can.
Yeah, I've had to do the 10-mile walk back to get into cell service, and
the shame. Then you got walking another 10 miles to get back to your rig.
Exactly. But it's a matter of being prepared, right? So it doesn't take much, and that's the other thing too. If people are starting off and they're on a budget, like you're saying earlier, just start off with one thing. Make sure it's work within your budget, but hopefully a good quality product, whether it's a kinetic rope or whether it's a first aid kit or a shovel or whatever. But there's lots, or a winch or whichever, right? But just start doing those mods. I tell a lot of times, I say, I'd actually almost rather see people drive their vehicle stock for a year and get the recovery gear and get all those, learn about their vehicle, and to get the recovery gear and all that first before they start modifying it. So that
because the more you modify, the deeper in the woods you're going to go, and you're not going to have the gear to get you back out, right?
Exactly.
Like, you put big tires on it, you put you got your lockers, you got this, that, and the other thing, but you're sitting there like, oh man, I've never been stuck. This thing's unstoppable. You're going to find that spot that stops you, and then what?
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly. And I think, sticking with people that are new to the sport, and I've really seen, and I'm sure you've noticed it too, over the last 2 or 3 years, how much the sport has exploded.
Oh, huge.
Right.
Yep.
The
Yep.
pandemic
COVID
definitely.
made.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
there's a lot of new
Yeah.
people out there. And I think one of the biggest things is joining a club. So whether it be, like your guys' recovery
Yeah.
club or the Northern Lights Four-Wheel Drive Association in Ontario, or the Four-Wheel Drive Association of
Yeah.
BC, and getting involved in doing some of those, what they call newbie runs and
Yeah.
things like that. Right.
Yeah.
So,
Overland North,
yep.
OF 4-wheel drive. Those guys are all in Ontario.
Yep.
Really off-road recovery, they do rides. There's probably a ride, if not at least once, maybe 2 to 3 times a month that they're putting
Yep.
on. So
Yeah, so
there's
definitely recommend
always
getting
people to
involved in
get out
that.
with.
And I know like the Four-Wheel Drive Association in BC does a program. It's called Wheeling Wisely, and they're actually there's quite a number of
Yeah.
people that went down to the States and spent a lot of time and a lot of money getting certified training. So they're actually
Okay.
certified by these
Cool.
guys that teach people all around the world. And so they
Nice.
do these programs called Wheeling Wisely. And so, if there's a course available in your area, definitely recommend taking it.
Yeah.
And it might be $150 or something for a weekend, but it's worth it, right?
Yeah.
And a lot of it's just basics, tire placement and things like that. But for new people,
The biggest thing is getting out with a group of people that, some of them know what they're doing.
Yeah, hopefully.
Like the newbie runs, like you're saying, things like, the newbie runs, things like that. They're huge. Like, and you can always tell because they're the most packed, because it's just guys with their brand new Jeep Compass.
Yep.
You know what I mean? And we've had people, oh man, what's the craziest? We got a guy came out to Overland North in his Porsche. It's an older one that he's got some tires on, and some lights and things like that. I'm not talking SUV. I'm talking like
the actual Porsche car, not the Cayenne.
Yeah. No. Yeah, no. I'm talking like it's an old style, that middle 90s,
right,
where nobody really likes them, front engine Porsche. You know the ones I'm talking about. he's got tape Xing his headlights out, like just that rally style look, and it looks really good. He says he runs it off road. I have nothing to say he doesn't. I saw a Pontiac Vibe with some tires on it.
Yeah,
like, you know what I mean. If you want to go off roading, you can get to a lot of places with nothing.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I've seen a lot of cars.
Van.
I've seen a lot of cars where I didn't expect to see cars, right? So,
yeah.
But there's also a lot of good events. Like I know there's some events in Ontario and I keep on mentioning BC because that's where I'm from. But they've got I think it's called Jeepalooza down in Vancouver Island, and that we used to have an event here in town where it was a fundraiser for breast cancer, and we had like 65 vehicles out on a run kind of idea, and a lot of the people had never put it into 4-wheel drive before, and because it was done through the local dealership, but they were so excited and the smiles on their faces. And so definitely if you are new to it, don't be afraid. Just hook up with some people that in some of these forums or on Facebook or whatever, and just do it.
You don't need the 42-inch tires, and all that stuff at the beginning. Like
my
puts a smile on your face. Just drive it down some dirt
exactly.
roads.
My Tacoma's mostly stock, and I'm out with a friend. He's got 40s on his truck, and he can go farther than I can. But for the type of wheeling that we do, it works great for me, right? So you guys have bags where people can put their ropes and that in.
Yep.
And
so we have kits. We have a section on the website called Build Your Own Kit. You can pick a bag, you pick a rope, you pick soft shackles, you can put a low friction ring in there. You can add a winch line. There's more stuff coming.
Yep.
I promise you that. We're working on about 7 new products we're hoping to have done by the end of the year, at least for pre-orders.
Yep.
I like doing pre-orders. See if there's a need for it. Get it out there. So pay attention to pre-orders. Oftentimes the pre-order is a bit cheaper. So pay attention for that. The bags that we're getting are from Adventure Trail Gear.
Okay. Yep.
if you've heard of them, he's pretty popular in the bag industry in Canada, and he stitches them himself. Him and his buddy run this company. There's a couple of Sawyers. Is it called Sawyers?
Not sure.
People who sew.
Oh,
I don't know. Tailors. Embarrassing myself here. Nick would come over and be like, smack me in my face. Sawyers, he'd say.
Yeah.
Anyways, so he's a great guy to deal with. He's designing bags left, right, and center. He's constantly working on stuff made in Canada out of like top quality material. Yeah, 100%.
Beautiful.
That's who I'm going with. We go to shows together. Oftentimes, if you see my booth, his booth is right beside me. And Go Treads. So it's usually Kevin from Go Treads, me, and Adventure Trail Gear, Nick. And it's just the three companies we help each other
work
out,
together,
build each other up.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So one of always the last question we do on the 4x4 Canada podcast is, who would you like to listen to as a guest on the show?
I'd like to recommend you get in contact with a really off-road recovery.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people have a lot of interest in what he's saying. I'd love to see that grow. That's one. Nick from Adventure Trail Gear, and then Kevin from Go Treads.
It's actually funny. I have them open. Both of those guys. I have their websites open in my browser, and I just got to send the email off to them. They're definitely on my list.
I can be your contact.
Yeah,
I can be your contact. No worries. Kevin would absolutely love to probably get on the air here. He's a good guy. Nick, he's a little bit busier. Right. Might be a little bit more difficult. He's got kids and whatnot, but he'll definitely try. Anyways. Overland North.
Mm-hmm.
Christian from Overland North. Give him a shout. I'd love to see them grow into something big too.
So let's talk about the Overland North. It's something that a lot of people that are outside of Ontario may not know about, or even in Ontario may not know about.
Yeah, so Overland North is what they're doing is they're doing 2 events every year. They might push it to 3 eventually. I'm not sure, but the first one they're doing, it's in Albany Hills. It's in Ontario. You can camp for the whole weekend. There's vendors. Obviously, I'm there as a vendor. That one is more like there's people that come in for the day. Mm-hmm. For vendors, they come in, they check out your rigs. You're down in this massive campsite. There's 3 different camping spots, and I haven't even seen them all because it's such a large. Honestly, it's a big spot. They do a big dinner. It's a great event to come to. They do trail runs throughout the day.
Basically, it's Ontario's answer to Overland Expo.
Yeah. So that's what they're trying to do. The one in the fall here that just happened, that one, the rally. So there's the gathering and the rally is going to be limited in size.
Okay.
It's out on an old runway up in Huntsville. Up in the center of the Muskokas up there, and they're limiting it probably to 160 people, and it's gonna be an exclusive thing, is what I'm imagining. Once you're in, unless you give up your spot, you're gonna constantly be in. So, it's already at 160 people.
Yeah, I saw some videos of it on YouTube. There's a few YouTube people, where they're filming, and of course, Chrome from Van City, the Van Life was there as well, and there's I saw about 4 or 5 other videos on it, and looked like a fun event out on that airstrip for sure. So
all I'm saying is jump on it now, because it may fill up to the point where everyone that goes every year goes every year, and there's no spots left. So
definitely a good idea.
I highly recommend it, because that one is you are a tight knit group. There's a dinner on the Saturday. Again, they've got bonfires all the way up the runway, and you just can meet and greet and go and talk to people. It's all in one line. So you walk a kilometer, a mile from one end to the other, and you see everyone's rig, like, oh, that's a cool rig. Like, it's all right there
Yeah.
in front of you.
Nice.
So OF 4-wheel drive does their Campanelle.
That's what I
So
was
it's
thinking
Camp
of. Yeah.
Northern Lights.
Yeah. That's the one I was thinking of. Yeah.
Yeah. So OF 4-wheel drive, I'm a sponsor of them as
Yeah.
well. And they're great to deal with. And they do newbie runs all the time. And they are constantly working on the trails in Ontario to keep them open and keep them going. So like 100% recommend go get, like, if you're going to run the trails, spend the whatever it is, $50 for a pass, because it goes a long way.
Yeah. These are the guys
So
that are volunteering all
people
their time and that too,
yeah,
keeping those trails open.
yeah.
So I know when I was,
Campanelle,
yes.
that event, if you don't want to cook, everything's
Yeah.
cooked. You show up, you camp, you run trails 3 days. 3 days in a row, you're running trails. You can choose your trails, you get guides, everything. Like,
Yeah.
that is
When I went
spot.
to when I was living in Ontario, I went to Campanella a few times, and it was always a great time, and everybody was so welcoming, and it was always a fun time for sure.
It was my first time this year,
Oh,
honestly. I started sponsoring them, and I got in touch with them, and they're like, "Come on out to Campanelle, like this." We got whatever. I'm like, "Oh man, but it was in Kimmel, and that's like 30 minutes from my house." So I'm like, "Yeah, I can't not go." Like, be foolish.
Yeah, exactly.
But I had a wedding on the Saturday, so I got up there, set up, hung out for the Friday, came home for the wedding, went back up and packed up on the Sunday. But next year, you're gonna have to clear the calendar because it's a great time.
Yeah. You just have to tell people to change your wedding date. I mean, why do people actually get married in the summertime? Don't they know that's wheeling time? Like,
hey, buddy, no, we're gonna change that. I've been planning this for 2 years. Listen, I got a better day for you.
There's four-wheeling and fishing in the summertime. Like, why do people actually do weddings in the summer, right?
Yeah.
Obviously, they weren't talking to the guys 100%. On this one.
No, they weren't. It was the wife that figured it all out. And that's just not a good idea. You gotta put your foot down, man.
Awesome. Ian, I really appreciate you coming on board. Again, we're talking to Ian from Afraid Not Ropes. Website is afraidnotropes.ca, and that's not as in KNOT, and Afraid Not Ropes on Facebook and Instagram as well. Anything else you wanted to bring up?
It's actually AKR Off-Road as well. I'm kind of double branded. AKR Off-Road does like the Can-Am stuff and my billet stuff.
Gotcha.
Things like that.
Perfect.
So, I'm kind of pushing the AKR Off-Road part now because people kind of know Afraid Not Ropes. So, but I do have a question. I have a question for you. Actually, I'm going to turn this interview around.
Alrighty.
Right? I've heard you've asked, and I don't know if you've answered. What's a vehicle you've sold that you regret selling?
Oh,
who's the interviewer now?
I've had a few that I've regretted selling over the years. I'm a huge early Bronco fan, and that started, right from, when I was 6 months old. I've actually got a picture of myself as a baby with a Bronco hat on, right? So, but I had a 74 Bronco that I'd done up and it wasn't perfect by any means, but that's one that I do miss.
To grab your heart,
and
man.
Probably the biggest regret is my dad and I built a 47 Willys CJ2A as a race Jeep when I was growing up, like when I was a teenager. We went to a few mud bogs with it and stuff like that, and eventually I traded him actually one of my Broncos for the Jeep, and because I had a few Broncos at that time, and I ended up selling the Jeep to a friend, and then it sort of disappeared. And that's one I'd love to get back, just because the biggest reason is that something that my dad and I built, and it wasn't a race winner and stuff like that, but it's something that my dad and I built in the garage. And my dad's no longer with me, so it's just something that I would love to get back, and just even if I don't restore it to the way, even if I don't restore it to the way that we had it, if I built it into a street and trail rig, then I'd totally be happy with that. But it's yeah, that one's just full of memories, right? So yeah.
Yeah. Well, let's start the hashtag now. Hashtag find Wes's Jeep.
Exactly.
Post up a picture on your
Yeah.
website. This is what it was. If someone knows where it is,
Yeah,
let me know.
definitely. We did come across about 10 years ago. It was actually in Kamloops, actually, and I should have grabbed it then. It had been stripped and stuff like that, but the cage was there and the axles were still there and the body and that, but it
Search is on,
yes.
man. Search is on.
Definitely. That was an
Right on.
excellent question.
Yeah, well, hey, I know. Thanks so much for
Oh,
having me. I really
not a
appreciate it.
problem.
And I appreciate what you're doing. Trying to, get some clout for the guys that are over here just doing the best we can in Canada. And